Hey, what's up? I'm Brett with Premier Guitar. I'm here in Mundelein, Illinois with David Eden of Eden Bass Amplifiers. Hey, David, how you doing?
Good, Brett. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It sounds like you've got some great stuff to show us. You mentioned this amp over here being kind of the new high-tech,
Yeah. This is kind of fun. This is one of our new high-tech pieces. This is kind of our breaking piece for getting into this technology platform. This is our WTX 260. We did this about a year ago, brought this out. Still a new product for us. It features a really slick setup. The output system and the power supply are all put together into one PC board. It's really nice high-tech. It's double-sided, latest surface mount technology. This is a really nice amplifier. You can plug this in any place from the outback in Australia to Mexico to Europe to anywhere in the United States. It'll automatically figure out the voltage it needs to run.
Now, it's making me want to flip this thing around and look at the back panel.
There's not much here. That's the nicest part about it. It is really simple. You got one AC plug, no user fuse, everything's automatic. Just get a cord for the local country you're at, plug it in, you're ready to play.
And it just figures it out on its own.
All automatic.
The other thing, obviously the size, it's smaller.
Yeah, it's 3.8 pounds. You can put it in the gig bag on your bass, take it any place in the world with you. It's a great flight aid amp.
Oh, wow, it's super light. And so how much does it put out? I mean, tell me a little bit about the componentry and the guts of this thing.
Yeah, the preamp is all analog. It's set up with our golden ear chip in it, so it emulates a vacuum tube real nicely. It basically has most of the feature set out of the Eden 405.
Okay, and the Eden 405 is over here.
Yes. It's got a 3-band tone control. It's got our enhance control, which is kind of our signature control. It's got a pre-post DI. It's got the mute. It's got the gain preset. It doesn't have that feature. And then it's got a simple compressor system in it that you can turn off if you want to. And then an automatic limiter in the output stage just to control everything in the amplifier so you can't overdrive it too unreasonably. And it's got a full effects loop, Pro DI, everything you need to go play, auxiliary inputs, and you're ready to rock and roll.
And cabinets, I mean, you guys are known for your cabinets as well. Tell me a little bit about your approach to design and sonic quality.
Yeah, we do this a little differently. I mean, we started out many, many years ago in the PA business. And we did all sorts of high-power PA systems, four-way flown things, international tour rigs, all that kind of stuff. And we got into bass stuff. I've always done it because my friends are always bass players. And when I did a lot of mixing for a lot of years. I always listened to my buddies play, and their rigs always sounded terrible.
Sure.
This was the 70s and early 80s. The gear wasn't as good back then, at least bass gear. There are great vintage guitar amps. There aren't very many great vintage bass amps.
Sure. I mean, other than, the famous SVT, there's not a lot of options.
That's still a good amp. But we did a little differently is I voiced these cabinets kind of like an instrument, like you'd voice an instrument. So they're voiced particularly for different music styles and playability. Now we generally have our stuff set up so you can play any style of music in it. One of the things that makes our stuff work really well is the speakers are super efficient, more efficient than most of the other stuff in the marketplace. And we keep the weight of the components really light. So the speakers can move very quickly. So when you put your hands on the strings and you play a note, the cabinets are very expressive. They'll follow your hands, they'll follow your bass, they'll follow the sound you create. So your hands really tell the tale through the speakers of what your sound is.
Yeah, it's responsive. There's touch sensitivity, things like in the guitar world that are really, really important. Your amp should react to every little thing you do.
It's very similar. And different styles of amps react differently. Some amplifiers, like the classic hand-wired stuff that's very simple, you hear every little nuance of the guitars. Some of the later model amplifiers that have heavier distortion, you don't hear that so much. It's kind of pushed down, and you get more of the amp sound and the string sound or the instrument sound.
Sure.
So our stuff is more open.
Okay.
You can kind of think about this. It's kind of like the difference of pushing a Volkswagen up a hill or a Cadillac.
Right. I got it. Over here, I'm seeing something that is giving a nod to the classic vibe. Tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah, this is new for this year. This is our E-Series. This is done a little differently. This is a classic, more old-school design. These are KT-88s in a 6-pack. Classic 60s basic vacuum tube layout. High-gain input. Variable distortion. Very simple 3-band EQ with a couple nice little features. We have a mid-shift control to kick it up from the classic range to the rock range. Overdrive's engageable, and it's got a 10 dB input pad if you have a really high output instrument. normal standby switch. In the back's a full effects loop, tuner out, full Pro DI, and a really nice feature, each tube in this is individually biased.
Oh, that's cool.
So instead of having to buy a six-pack of expensive output tubes, if you have a tube dropout, you can replace one tube and bias to match on the fly.
And you're not, yeah, oh, that's really a great feature.
Everything's exterior, so with a small voltmeter, a couple minutes in the back, you can set up your bias for everything.
Well, let's take a second and flip this around and we'll take a look. Okay, so David, you were talking about external biasing and being able to put in one tube, not having to buy a duet or a six-pack or whatever it is. So this is what we're looking at?
Here we are. This is a feature we've got on this. You take just a common voltmeter, put your common ground connection over here, then you can sample right here, set up for basically 35 millivolts at these test points, and just as a screwdriver, and you can set up every tube to be right in line.
Oh, and it's that simple, and the access is that easy.
Comes off with 4 screws. They're T-nut in, so there's easy access every time you want to do it. The fan comes up from the bottom, blows across the tubes, then out the front and the back, so it's got flow-through cooling.
Yeah, and this is great. I mean, the heat's going to rise up, but it's going to escape right here.
Yep, it makes it really easy. The tubes should have good long life expectancy. We've got standard quarter-inch outputs, plus an NL4, switchable impedance. This also comes with a foot switch. You can engage the overdrive and the mute on the foot switch.
Sure.
And the full balance DI.
Oh, there you have it. Wow, what a great...
Simple, but everything a pro needs.
Simple, and it looks powerful, too.
This is a loud amp. It peaks at over 700 watts.
That's cool.
So it's got tons of headroom.
So what is, finally, right here, the Traveler 550, the World Tour WT800?
Yeah, these are both kind of our classic heads. The 550 is probably a style we've been building the longest. This is our original tone control system. It's a 5-band control system. It's got a low-frequency bass and a high-frequency treble shelving style control like in a hi-fi system. The middle 3 are semi-parametrics, and they swing plus or minus 15 dB around the frequency centers. And these are set the low from 30 to 300.
And when you say plus or minus 15 dB around the frequency centers, break that down so it's really simple.
Sure.
And I get it.
The top control sets your frequency of operation. And you can go from the bottom down here at 30 to the top at 300. The next control goes from 200 to 2K, 1.2 to 12K. You notice how the controls just overlap?
Sure.
These are all set with a Q of 1, which is equal to an octave.
Okay.
That's a very musical point.
Right.
And when you put these two together and you put the filters together, they won't overlap. They'll actually meet and blend.
Okay.
So with some parametrics, like a full parametric EQ, you can get some really funny phase shifting sounds. You can cross the filters and get some oddities happening.
Sure.
We spent a lot of time and took all the bad sound characteristics out of here, so you really can't misoperate the filters.
So when you talk about really shaping the EQ spectrum in your sound, you're giving guys a lot of flexibility here.
And a lot of power. You know, this control is 15 dB, this has 15 dB, this enhanced control has 15 to 20 dB. It's a complicated network. And these are fast controls. If you take 2 or 3 clicks on this control, you will hear things happening. It's not a slow control. Everything on this does something and does it quickly and well.
It's not just there to look pretty.
No, they're all very effective controls, very easy to use, and they're very musical, which I think is the most important thing.
Sure, and the head just below this one looks like a similar version.
Yeah, actually, the EQ sections are virtually identical. What this one has is more power, more features, and more choices. But once you've learned how to use an Eden control group, all the similar amplifiers operate in the same way, in the same manner. It's very easy to cross between products. Now, both of these have vacuum tube preamps in them.
Sure.
So they've got a tube front end for that nice warmth character. Then they've got solid-state processing for the tone controls. And then a big high-power analog audio amplifier in the output.
Oh, that's great.
So they're big, beefy-sounding amps with lots of punch and lots of headroom.
Well, hey, David, I'd like to thank you for our little tour of Eden bass amplifiers.
My pleasure.
I'm Brett. You're watching PremierGuitar.com.